Hey guys, thank you once again for joining us in this Friday's webinar here at YOUmake Miami. But just to give you a quick glimpse as to our agenda for the day, it will be Jaden who will be demonstrating how to make a Halloween monster hand. And after that, it will be myself who I will be demonstrating how to do a Halloween spooky ghost. And after that, it will be Nicole, and she will be talking about paper mache as a technique. And last but not least, we got Hector, who he himself actually went ahead and attempted a great little Halloween craft for the kiddos. Very simple, cute little crafts made out of toilet paper rolls. And I'm super excited to have you all watch. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. And I'd like to toss it over to my colleague, Jaden.
Yes, hello everybody. We're gonna hop right into it. So for my craft, like Dinah mentioned before, I'm gonna be making a monster hand. I'm gonna be moving down the camera so you guys can see my materials. All I'm using today is a latex glove, some duct tape, I have masking tape and duct tape, and a pair of scissors. Just these three simple materials. So we're gonna use the glove as our base to start off with. So I'm gonna go ahead and slip this on. I'm primarily right-handed, so I'm putting it on my left hand just so I have an easier time trying to maneuver this. Of course, if you have somebody to help you out, it might make it a little easier. So bear with me if I struggle a little bit with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on the glove, make sure it's nice and snug. And I have it here on my hand. Now for this monster hand, you could just do your hand like straight outward like this, or you can bend the fingers a little bit, do like different poses if you want to be funny about it, maybe like a peace sign or something. But just keep in mind that if you bend the fingers, it's going to be a little bit harder to wrap them in the duct tape, but we're going to get into that. So I have my glove on. And the glove that I made earlier, I used the masking tape first as a base, and then I did duct tape over that just to give it 2 layers, but that's really not necessary. And I found that masking tape, it's not as sticky, so it won't really adhere to the glove as well. So I'm just gonna go straight for the duct tape and apply it on directly. So I'm gonna peel this back. And the monster hand that I'm making, I wanted it to look like this green zombie or like Frankenstein hand. So I just used a tape that was already colored. So I already have green as a base. And I personally start at the wrist because it's the widest, flattest part of the hand that you can wrap the tape easily around. So that's usually my starting point. And I try to leave a little bit of wiggle room at the base there so I can take it off afterwards. So I'm gonna start here slowly wrapping the tape around my wrist and coming around. And another thing to keep in mind is you don't want it to be too tight because you need to leave some wiggle room between the glove and your skin so you'll be able to take it off afterwards. So I'm gonna cut this first strip here. Bear with me, it's a little bit of a struggle as I try to cut this. Another thing that I discovered when I was making this is I'm using like basic craft scissors, but duct tape, again, tends to be very sticky and it might leave this like residue on your scissors. So maybe get some craft scissors that you don't care too much about because it is gonna leave that stickiness on the blades. So just bear that in mind. So again, I'm going over the larger areas of the hand first because those are easier to cover up. And I'm just single-handedly cutting the strips as I go along. Really hard. Sometimes it sticks. Got that there. And of course, you want to try to avoid having the duct tape touch itself because then you can't unstick it and you already lost some of the tape there. I'm going to keep wrapping it around like this. I'm going to continue getting the larger areas of my hand. I haven't touched the palm yet. Doing that. So it's pretty much like you're mummifying your hand in tape with this glove on. And of course, kiddos, if you plan on doing this, please ask your parents' permission, have them help you with this because you don't want to accidentally hurt yourself while you're dealing with these scissors around your hand. So this process kind of continues for a little while. I'm going to try to do a little bit more just to get a good amount of coverage so I can show you guys the next step. But again, I'm kind of going over and trying to cover the larger areas as much as I can, wrapping it around. When it comes to the fingers, the way that I like to go about it is to cut the strips kind of like in little rectangle pieces. So I could just wrap it around the finger in one go. But again, it depends on how you want to pose your fingers. Because of course, if you just want to have them straight out like this, you can just wrap it with one solid piece of tape, but it's gonna stick straight out. So I got a little bit creative with one of the hands that I made because I made several. And for one of them, I kind of like bent two of the fingers and then I chopped off one of them. Like I had a finger missing just to give it a little bit more personality. So feel free to get creative with that. But I'm gonna try wrapping one of my fingers like so. See, like this. Try to just do it like this in one go and wrap it around. It's almost like a Band-Aid. So I'm just gonna do this one finger, and with some movie magic, we're gonna fast forward and I'm gonna show you what the next step looks like. You know, as you continue to wrap the tape around your hand, you'll keep going until you get full coverage all the way around. And eventually, when it's time to get your hand out of the mold, um, normally I'd recommend if you have like a plastic straw available to you at home, maybe try putting the straw underneath the glove so that there's an extra layer between the glove and your skin. So maybe the scissors don't touch you as much. But if you don't have the straw, very carefully, again, you're going to take the pair of scissors and you're going to slide it under here and you're going to cut, make an incision basically all along here so that you can wiggle your hand out of the glove. So I already have a pre-made glove that I worked on earlier, which is here. So and as you can see here, I made this cut going all the way to the palm so that I could slide my hand out of it. And this is the base. I cut off one of the fingers because I wanted it to have a missing finger. And you can see when I turn it to the side, some of the fingers are a little bit bent, but I used like two different green tapes here and just kept layering it all the way around. I got some strips between the fingers to get those little spaces in between there and just kind of gave it a unique shape. And of course, you don't want to leave this big hole here in the middle, this big cut. So you can just go ahead and take the tape and put one strip over it here to patch it back up again and close it up. And of course, you can feel free to design it and decorate it, paint it however you want. Again, I had a green base. I wanted to go for a zombie kind of look. But another cool thing that you can do with this hand technique is that if you do it with clear tape and it's a completely transparent hand, you can make it look like a ghost hand, which is also pretty cool. And once you add the painting and the details, I'm going to show you guys what the finished product looks like. This was my finished hand. So I'm gonna hold it up a little bit closer. I don't know if you can see, but I painted some like little stitch details on it to make it look more Frankensteinish. And then I also painted some nails onto the fingers to make it a little bit more believable. But you could use this as a cool centerpiece, either in a bowl of candy, or you can put it in a potted plant, maybe to make it look like it's coming out of the ground. Or like I said before, if you do the same technique with clear tape, you probably need to use a white or clear glove if you want to go that route to make a ghost hand, and you can even put fairy lights inside of it to make it light up and make it look like a ghost hand. So that's pretty much my craft for the day. I've got my creepy hand here.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the glove that you use for your craft? Is it a particular type of glove that you recommend, or anything can be used?
These are just regular latex gloves. I know it's not normal for somebody to typically have latex gloves lying around the house, but because of the times that we're in, I feel like they're more common than they used to be. So if you have latex gloves lying around, it doesn't really matter what color they are, because like I said, I completely covered it in duct tape and ended up painting it over, so you don't even see what the base color of the glove was. The only exception would be if you wanted to do the transparent look like I mentioned before, you might want to use a glove that's white or clear if you want to go for the ghost look. I see that Annie asked a question in the chat asking how long does it usually take to complete. Well, this glove, it really didn't take me long. The most time consuming part is painting it, because you have to wait for the paint to dry. So I would say like less than an hour probably. As you guys can see, I didn't take me very long to get a lot of coverage on my hand. But if you're doing it by yourself and you're like, you're like struggling with it, it might take you a little bit longer than if you had somebody helping you cut the strips of tape. But it's definitely a pretty quick craft. You can do it in less than an hour for sure. It depends on how fast the paint dries.
Passing
Thank
it
you
over to
so
you.
much, Jaden, for that great craft that you gave us there. So let's begin. So today we're going to be making these cute little ghosts that I found obviously online, and you could go and research them yourself as well. But just to give you a quick demonstration, let's talk about the materials that we first need. First and foremost, you need a piece of cloth, kind of like this creepy cloth that I found that you could find at a dollar store. You could get this for $1. You could also, ideally, they call them cheesecloth. You could find that at any store, usually like in the baking section, as it is used for food. And yes, you're gonna need a cup that you could possibly put some starch in. This starch is the starch from, like, if you're ironing clothes, if anybody irons, you know what I'm talking about. I'm actually using this weird contraption. Don't make fun of me, but okay, so this is a bottle, right? And I'm reusing this bottle. And the reason why I have these skewers here is because they're supposed to be like the hands for the ghost. This is the body of the ghost that I used. Because obviously we're gonna need to make sure that we build this body and a base for it to stand. But I'm not going to be using this one today. I just wanted to show you what one of the what I did use in another craft that I will show you at the end. So next thing you'll need is definitely balloons. We'll need a balloon. You'll need maybe some cute little decor, like some spiders, and gloves to make sure that your hands don't get dirty. And I did actually use a spray mounting glue, and you could also find those at your craft store as well. And we're gonna need some eyes. So these are cut out of felt. They could be cut out of anything really, any construction paper, that'd be great. So the one that I'm gonna be making here, I'm going to be using this small balloon. So the balloon, you don't have to blow it up extremely big. It could just be as the size as big as your fist. And I'm using this bottom. It's not milk. It's actually Mod Podge. It's just a cup, an old cup that I use, you know. So I'm okay with using that. A lot of the things that I like to do is pretty much upcycle most of the things that my crafts come out from upcycled materials. So we have now the body. After we have the body, here I already pre-soaked the cloth. I pre-soaked it in, it's a little too much. Let's go ahead and squeeze that out. I pre-soaked it in starch. Let me go ahead and put the other one in there. So this fabric is a little too thin. It's too flimsy. So I'm gonna double it. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and soak the other one. So make sure to stretch it out as much as possible. And then you're gonna put it over your body. And this one, you wanna make sure that you get a nice base at the bottom. You wanna make sure that you kind of like a bell bottom type, you know, you wanna expand the base. So make sure you do that. Make sure you wanna go all the way around. And now the next one, I should probably spray a little bit more. So let me go ahead and do that. Maybe you might want to have a mask on when you do this. And let me go ahead and squeeze that out as well. Now that we have this one's a little longer in length. So if you see that in some areas, if you notice here in this area, there's not much fabric, you want to make sure that you put some sort of fabric over it. Yes, you need to use a very well ventilated area. So then you're going to go ahead and throw this over, making sure that you cover the areas that look a little exposed and open. You want to bring in the bottom. You want to expand it, and you're going to want to sit it. You know, you want to lay out definitely newspaper. I forgot to say, newspaper is definitely one of the materials. Scissors as well. Kiddos, please ask your parents for permission and help to help you in any of these crafts. Now, once you feel satisfied with that, well, in reality, you are going to just let it sit there. Now, I did went ahead and sprayed some of this mounting glue. Like I said, we do need to go outside for this and wear a mask. I'm not going to spray it due to the purposes of that I'm in a room by myself. So I'm not going to do that to myself, and I apologize for that. So now I'm going to show you the final product. And so the final product that I have here, you're going to get this cute little ghost. And so you're going to have to pop the balloon and make sure the balloon, actually try to take it off before it actually deflates, because then you'll end up with this weird lump like I did at the top. But never mind that, never you mind that. And you see you have this cute little ghost here that you could go ahead and decorate. So you could go ahead and put your little eyes there. Of course, you're going to want to glue them. The reason why they stick is because of the felt, and the fibers are able to latch on to the other fabric. And last but not least, if you want to add more decor to it, you could go ahead and put on some spiders. And this will make a great decoration. Maybe if you have a little, just a little family get together, you know, just you and your family. Just put a little cute decor at the on the table. Maybe it doesn't need that one. But you'll end up with a cute little ghost like this. And I'll show you this other one that I attempted. It's supposed to actually stand up as well, but funny thing is that it didn't. But what I am going to do with this one, I'm going to get some fishing line, and you could go ahead and pretty much grab it from there. Like if you notice, you could see the hands of the ghost up here, and you could go ahead and grab that and also add some little eyes to it, and the little ghost is all ready to go. You see that? And I thought that was a cute little idea for us to keep our Halloween spirits up, especially now that we have to be at home, making sure that we are safe. And before we transition over to my wonderful colleague, Nicole, I'd like to show you a small craft that I did with the Mod Podge technique myself. And so I actually just did this with my left hand. I'm actually very proud of this myself. So I got inspired by the movie Hocus Pocus. And if any of you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The book has a huge eye at the center of it. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of mimic that as well. But as you could see, I was only using one hand and I couldn't finish the back of it, but I painted it and everything. So I'm really happy. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and toss it over to Nicole, and she's gonna guide us through her process and her wonderful craft. So Nicole?
Awesome, thank you so much, Dinah. All
Nicole.
right, guess we're gonna jump into paper mache. So Dinah just showed you when she did, and she started with a glass bottle and put paper mache on it to make those shapes and those eyes. You're gonna want to, if you're doing paper mache, you're gonna wanna start with something that's not gonna lose its shape, because paper mache will weigh down whatever it is it's sitting on, and it will change shape if you don't have something sturdy. So this pumpkin was made with a balloon. That these ridges were just rolls of paper that I taped to the outside of the balloon. And then this was made, I think, with rolls of paper and tape, lots of tape. So the balloon is a pretty stable shape. Even though it's kind of squishy and soft, it'll keep its shape well enough for paper mache. So this was really helpful. I wanted to point out though that I have it tilting, like it's a tilted pumpkin, and I had to weight it because the stem would pull it over and it would just fall down. So right here I put, what are they called, little washers and a screw or two to hold it down because it was just flopping over. So I had to weight the front of it, and now it stands up. So you can make anything really with paper mache, but you're gonna have to get creative if something is not working for you. This one, can't see the top. This one was a bunch of recyclables. So down here, this base, it was a really big plastic bottle. I think it was coconut oil. And then this was another plastic bottle that I think was juice. And up here, this was a plastic cup. And we've got popsicle sticks that made the arms. And down here is a paper plate. So this guy was just a lot of recyclables. And I used long strips of newsprint to make his body. And then to get this texture, I would just put it on there and like crinkle it up as I put it on, which was pretty fun. I was like really proud of this texture. And then to paint it, this one was painted with an acrylic base. And then I like to use tempera as a wash because it is thinner than acrylic. So it makes a good light wash if you don't really want a solid color. So that's this guy. And there's a hole in the top. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be fun to put a plant in there? But it's paper mache and it probably wouldn't survive the plant. Just a thought. And this one, I wanted to point out, is all tempera paint. And you can even, in some places, like on the bottom, you can see the newsprint peeking through, which I thought just gave it a cool texture. So, paper mache, and then what I'm gonna be demonstrating right now is masks. And you can just like poke a hole in this and hang it on your wall or something. Or you could wear it as a costume because I made it to fit my face. So masks are what we're gonna be working on right now. And this was started with something like this. It's hard to see, so I'm gonna hold up this piece of paper, and it's wire mesh. And this wire mesh, I just found online. I think it was called like wire mesh for crafting or something like that. And it comes in a big roll, and it's flat when you get it. So when I cut it out, it looked kind of like this. And I just used regular scissors. So like Jaden was saying, use scissors you don't care about because it is metal, it is wire, it's going to go a little bit dull if you use it too much, but it was really easy to cut out with scissors. Just use ones you don't care about. So it came like this, and I cut it out into the shape that I wanted, and then whoop, I just placed it on my face and indented it where I want it to indent and curved it around my face so that it would have my shape. You got to be careful with this though, because when you cut it, the edges are going to be sharp. It's going to snag on things. That's pulling my gloves right now. It's going to snag. It will snag your hair. It'll snag your skin. It'll snag your clothes. Be very careful with wire mesh. But it can make some super cool stuff. So I wanted to point out the nose because I wanted this nose to be really sharp and pointy and stick up a little. It sticks up. So I had to, on the flat shape, when it was flat, whoops, it sticks out, I had to cut down the middle of the nose. And then I put on 2 triangles to make that really pointy nose shape. And right here you can see a staple that I used and then extra wire just to hold it together so that it will stay on there while I'm paper macheing. All right, so really quick, we're just gonna do a demonstration. And with paper mache, you can use different sizes of paper, and really you can use any paper at all because anything will work. What I had was a bunch of newsprint that the library just had hanging around. So that's what I used. I'm gonna dip it in this paper mache paste. I like to have a whisk around whenever I paper mache because if you leave it sitting too long, it will settle and the water rises to the top and the paste part goes to the bottom. So I just mix it up every once in a while, get it all nice and paste-like. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna take a strip of paper, and this is a small strip, like I said, because it fits my mask better. But if I was doing the pumpkin, I would use these big strips. That's what I used to make the pumpkin because it was just easier. But smaller shapes demand smaller pieces of paper. So I just dip it in and I flip it around, and then I take between my 2 fingers, I'm going to just very gently slide off that excess because we don't want too much. We want this to be able to dry sooner rather than later. It's going to sit overnight, but it would be nice for it to dry faster. So as long as my paper is completely covered, we're good. And I'm going to place it onto my wire mesh. And with wire mesh, it's important that you cover both sides. So at first, the first time I tried to do this on a wire mesh, I only covered one side and it slipped right off. Guys, this is my first layer and it just came right off as it dried. It didn't even pretend to stick to my wire mesh to keep the shape that I wanted. See how it's like completely flat? Yeah, so it's important to cover both sides. So if I were doing this whole thing right now, which I'm not because we won't have time, I would cover one side completely and then before it's dry, go over to the other side and cover it. So we're just gonna really quick do a couple of pieces. All right, just gonna get a little bit around the eye, and you'll notice that I'm not going over the eye socket. And you don't have to wear gloves. I'm just wearing gloves because I'm here at YOUmake and I don't want to have to brush out and wash my hands right away. But when I do this at home, I don't wear gloves because it's just, you don't need to. So I'm not going all the way to the edge. I don't want this to buckle and get weird. So I'm gonna let the flatter parts dry first, and then I'll show you in a minute. Then we go over to the edges. So if I get a couple of pieces here, wiping that off. Okay, I'm gonna flip it over really quick so you can see the opposite side, and I'm gonna make sure I cover the same areas so that it doesn't slide right off as it dries. All right, see that? It's really easy. You just layer on piece after piece after piece, and as long as you get all of the straight areas first, you'll be good. And then I'm gonna show you really quick over the nose And these masks, I wanted the noses to be closed. So you see how it's open at the bottom here? I wanted it to drape over, but I would do that last. So for the nose, I just start over the bridge, not quite to the edge, and I pat it down gently. So my goal is to get this whole structure covered with paper without it losing its shape. I want it to stay in the same shape that I molded onto my face. All right, so I'd keep doing that. I would layer on more and more and more. All right, but I think you guys get the idea. So,
Cool. While you're
yeah.
working on that, Nicole, we
Yeah.
did have a question from the chat.
Okay.
We got somebody else is coming in. Where can they purchase that wire mesh?
This one I just got online.
you-
I found it on Amazon. So
Okay, on
it
Amazon.
was just called wire mesh, and I'm not even sure if it said for crafting. It was just, I don't know. I think I just searched wire mesh and it popped up. This one specifically is for sculpture. A lot of people will use this underneath clay whenever they're making clay sculptures, and it's known for paper mache. People will use it to do stuff with paper mache.
Cool, cool. And there is another question.
Yeah.
If you can comment a little bit on how do you shape the mask to give it the proper shape?
Yeah, so first I kind of, let me show you here without touching my face because it's all wet now. So when I first got it, it was this flat piece, and I first held up the flat, it was just a rectangle. So it was like this, and I held it up over my face so that I could get the right dimensions. And then once I got the right dimensions, I drew out the shape that I wanted, and you can see the little, my marker lines where I drew onto the wire mesh the shape that I wanted. And then once I had the shape that I wanted, I molded it onto my face. I cut out the basic shape, I put it onto my face and pushed it gently into my bridge area, onto my nose, around my eyebrows and cheeks, and I curved it around my face. So this is my face shape on here, onto this mask. So it's like tailor-made for me, which is kind of fun. Except I don't know why I would need 4 masks, but that's how I did that.
Also, another quick thing, could you remind us the ingredients to make the paper mache mix?
Yes, well, I used 3 different ones. This one is just the easiest. So this one is 1 part flour, 1 part water, and that is literally all you need. But I sprinkle just a little bit of salt in there to keep it from getting moldy too quickly, and a little bit of cinnamon to make it smell a little bit better, just because raw flour doesn't smell great. So there are other recipes, and I tried 2 different ones, but that one was the easiest. And Annette asked, do I need to cut it beforehand? Yes. So these I ripped off of newsprint, and I just literally sat there one day and just ripped strips of paper. And then from this, I got even smaller strips of paper for my masks because those big ones were just too big. So yeah, you rip up a bunch of paper, and you don't even need to cut it. Like if you'll see, the rip lines are like a little jaggedy, and they're gonna be a softer edge whenever you paste them onto your sculpture, your product. They're gonna be a softer edge and leave less lines. So take a look at this, right? He's pretty smooth. Like you can see lines in a few places, but for the most part, this fox is pretty smooth. And I wanted him to be mostly smooth. I wanted a little bit of texture because he's a fox and he has fur and he's got a little bit of texture. But for the most part, you can't see it. It's because these little pieces of paper are jagged edges, and they're going to leave softer lines. If you cut it with scissors, it's going to leave a more firm line. So I don't know, how many pieces do we need to rip up? It depends on how big your project is. So with this project, I think I used maybe half the newspaper. Like I'm using newspaper liberally. It was like, I think it was like 4 pages this newspaper. So I use maybe 2 pages of newsprint. So it depends on how big your project is. Oh, sorry. So this is the next step, the next stage of our project. So I've already paper mache the front and the back, and I let it sit long enough to dry. And like, I guess you can't really hear that. It's not great. No, this one though. That one, like, is sturdy and solid. So this one needs a little bit more help. You can see that the edges haven't been done yet. And we really need to do that, especially around the eye, especially if someone's gonna wear it, because that can actually hurt you. So we wanna make sure that we get all these edges, and I'll show you how to do that. I like to use around the eye really, really thin pieces. And I like to even make them smaller than this so that they're just tiny. And we're going to do the same thing. I'll turn this down again. We're going to get this wet with our paste, and then I'm going to put this inside the eye and just fold it over the edge so that it will cover up all jaggy parts. We don't want any jagginess. See? And you just do that all the way around the eye. And it's easier with the little pieces on curved areas because they'll be able to fit into smaller places and won't fold up as much. I'm just gonna do a little bit here. And then wherever there are long, straight-ish pieces, places, areas, you can do some thicker, longer pieces of paper. So I'm gonna use this one real quick. Dip it in my paste. There we go. Just to show you a long edge. We're gonna put this one right here. And I'll put it first under the back. Get it stuck on there. Gloves are not easy. These gloves, I'm not a fan of doing paper mache with gloves. Okay, and then we just kind of rub it on there until it stays. Oh, and this side, we're gonna make sure that's pushed all the way down. And you just do that all the way around the edge until you don't have any more pieces that your gloves are sticking to. So, pushing down the piece of wire that popped up. Okay, so once you're happy with all of your edges being covered, then you move on to the last step. So right here, this one has been, all the edges have been covered. I've done one layer of my mask all the way in the front. You can hear it, but it's not as loud or as strong as my finished product because I've only done one coat of paper. You want at least 2 coats of paper for it to be solid and strong and sturdy. Like this one, I can still bend it. So I want it to be stronger than this. I would do another coat of paper. And that way too, you can see around the edges, especially around the eyes, you can see the strips of paper. And when I paint that, I feel like you'd be able to see that pretty clearly. So I definitely want to put another layer of paper, at least 2 layers to get it completely done. And this is the one that I started with whenever I was figuring this out. And this is the one that peeled right off this layer of paper mache. So this is the shape that I wanted. I wanted it to be curved, and this is the shape that I got. So as it was drying, the paper weighed down my wire mesh, and I didn't want that to happen again with this one. So I took a spoon and I placed it on the table, and I put my mask directly on there and just let it dry like that. So if something is weighing down your paper mache, which it very well might, you might need to prop it up with something else. Okay, so I think that's all I had. Were there any questions that I didn't get a chance to answer?
Yeah, actually, if you can show us the masks. Right now we're doing a little bit of trivia. See if somebody, oh, it looks like what actually is still showing. Somebody, Annie got the right answer because Jaden was asking what character from a movie was this in.
Nice, yeah.
So yeah,
Check it out.
Nightmare Before Christmas is correct. And Nicole
Yes.
actually, yeah, she did the whole three of them.
All three. Yep.
Shock
This
and
one's hard to
barrel.
see.
Lock,
But
shock, and
yeah,
barrel.
knock, shock, barrel. Yep. Good times. I figured if I was going to make three, I may as well make them go together. So, passing on to Victor.
Thank you. My part on this craft webinar is about paper crafts using toilet paper. So this is something that there's multiple videos on YouTube, and it's a super fun activity to do. And it kind of goes along also with what Nicole showed us, that wonderful tree that she made with the paper mache. You can use that as a background for some of these characters. So the materials that I use are toilet paper rolls, or you can also use paper towel rolls, and you can cut them in half if they're too tall. You can use scissors, any kind of scissors is fine. A regular glue stick or regular white glue that you may have around. For the decoration of the materials, you can use construction paper. You can use felt, which is the material that I use for my creatures, or you can use printer paper. And optional is to use markers or crayons to decorate if you're using a printer paper to color over the features of the creatures. I like that, the features of the creatures. So here are the steps that you need to do. First is to take your toilet paper roll and also some felt or paper. Then place down the roll and measure the length that you're going to need by rolling the paper felt over the material, over the paper roll. Then you can use the scissors to cut the felt to the desired length and width. And this particular felt I bought at a regular craft store. You can go to Michael's or Walmart, or there's plenty of stores that offer felt material, and it's super cheap. Like the ones that I got were like 40 cents each one of those squares, and they're usually about 10 by 10 on dimensions, 10 inches by 10 inches. So the next thing after you've cut the felt is you're gonna put the little roll and you're gonna glue the top side of that paper roll. So you can use the little stick or you can use the regular glue. Um, so then you're gonna roll the felt paper over the paper roll, and this is super easy. You just you literally are rolling over the little paper roll on top, and then once you get to the end, you can just glue the end of it. If you have any excess material, you can also trim that off a little bit. Any young kids in the audience, make sure that you get some parental assistance if you're using scissors or any sharp materials. The figure will look something like the one on picture 7. Once it's done, you're going to be cutting the details of the face, and most of these are super easy. I just cut triangular shapes about the size of a dime for the most part, and I use that for the eyes and the nose, and then I also cut a little bit of felt for the mouth. And if you notice, there's a little details on that, so I did some cutting away to show the little teeth. um, then you can also use other color felt for decorations. I use a green one for the little stem of the pumpkin, but you can also use different ones. And I also covered the top of this pumpkin by cutting a circular shape from the felt. That is actually just an option. You could just leave it empty. And I'm going to show another creature that I made, a little Frankenstein creature. You can leave it empty at the top, and if you create like a little base, or you can glue this little creature on a base, and you can use cardboard or any kind of heavy cardstock as a base for the creature. You can actually use this as a pencil holder or a marker holder. For those of you, I know we have a lot of artists in our audience, so this will be a wonderful place to store your colored pencils or your materials. After you've cut the little stem and the circular shape, you can glue them to the top, and also make sure to glue in the details. Now, sometimes when the features are too small and you don't want to get your hands all sticky, what I use sometimes is toothpicks or those little popsicle wooden sticks, and I just dip them in the glue, and I use that as like a little spoon to spoon over the glue. So that way it makes it a lot easier to add the glue, and you're not making a big mess. Because sometimes if the tiny details are too small, you're gonna get glue all over the place. So in order to avoid that, I use toothpicks or those little craft sticks. And this is the other material that the other creature that I did. This one I actually decided to do a little bit more of the details for the eyes. I cut in some circular shapes in white and black. And in order to get the correct size, I used a little dime. So I put a little dime and I penciled it on the white felt. And then I did the same thing with the black details for the pupils, but I cut in a little bit deeper, a little bit further, so that it will make a little pupil and then the cornea of the eye. And for the mouth and teeth, I just cut a little white strip of felt and tiny little cuts for the mouth detail. So this was a Frankenstein's monster. And this one I did leave the part of the top. I didn't fill that out because I'm using it as a little pencil holder. So I think that's a super fun feature. Now, your creativity is really gonna shine through when you're coming up with characters. But to get inspired, I actually used a little sample picture right here on the left. This is something that somebody made and I got the idea from. And if you notice, I made a couple of changes, you know, especially on the Frankenstein's monster. I did little changes for the mouth. You can add more details. Like if I had a little bit of more time, maybe I could have added the little, what are those called? Those little, what it has on the neck. I forget what it's called, but adding more details to your character. That little vampire creature, the little Dracula, looks fantastic. And if you notice, they also have those little googly eyes. You can also pick some of that stuff in pretty much any craft store. They sell that. Again, if you're gonna use construction paper, that is also sometimes easier to do. And in this case, you can see that they added some of the mouth details and stuff with either marker or pen. But this is super fun, and it took me literally just a couple of minutes to create each one of these little characters. Now, because we're part of the library, I also want to recommend some books on crafts that are available on our website, and you can request them and you can reserve them to pick them up. The first one is called Glitterville's Handmade Halloween by Stephen Brown. And this one is really detailed. So if you're really into intricate crafts, this book is fantastic. It has a lot of different things that you can do. That little spider that it's on the lower left, that's like a little glove. There's some tabletop decorations. There's also some masks. So it's a really, really fun book to do. The next one up is called Paper Crafts for Halloween by Randall McGee. And this is quite similar to the one I did. So this is all paper craft materials, super easy to do. And you can also decorate with your colored pencils or markers. You can do them to decorate your table or the front door of where you live. So this is a really fun and easy to follow along book. The next one up is called The Halloween Book by Jane Bull. And this one has 50 different crafts from costume creation to pumpkin decorations. This is a really wonderful book and also very easy to follow. And finally, we have a Spooky Halloween Crafts by Susan Cosino. This one's also very heavy on details, and it has multiple crafts that you can do. A lot of stuff with glitter and a little intricate details, paper crafts that are easy to do at home for Halloween, especially now that a lot of the outside activities are not allowed. This is great for decorating both indoor and outdoor of your home. So it's a really, really fun book. And finally, I'd like to recommend, if you can, to visit our YouTube channel. But we also have created playlists that we recommend for you guys to watch to get inspired. We have a few that we just did for this week for the paper crafts, and we've done also for some of the previous ones, like the audio recording session, the stop motion animation. So that's a really wonderful resource, and we welcome you guys to not just follow us on Instagram and Twitter, but also check out our YouTube channel. And that pretty much covers up everything we've done for today.
So I think we've come to the end of this week's webinar. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us and giving us an hour of your time. And we will see you next week. So again, thank you. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye, everybody.